nation, Tonga, that have been cut off from the world. Fox's Simon Owen has details live.
Dave, neighbouring Fiji says entrepreneur Elon Musk is helping to reconnect Tonga to the internet 3 weeks after a tsunami cut the only fibre optic cable linking the country to the rest of the world. Fiji's communication minister says a team from Musk's SpaceX company has arrived in Fiji to reconnect Tonga through SpaceX satellites. The tsunami destroyed villages, and the arrival of aid also appears to have caused a coronavirus outbreak. Dave.
America's listening to Fox News.
Why does Walgreens offer copays as low as $0 and 90-day refills? Because we care about Medicare, so you don't have to. I mean, do you really care to hear me go on about same-day prescription delivery making your life easier? Or how there's a pharmacy expert available 24/7 and one-click refills? Well, I just did anyways. Fill your Medicare prescriptions with Walgreens and save.
$0 copays apply to Tier 1 generic drugs and select plans with Walgreens as a preferred pharmacy. Restrictions apply. See walgreens.com/Medicare for complete details.
Watching TaxSlayer calculate your refund feels like climbing to the apex of a roller coaster.
Here we go!
And flying down the tracks. At maximum refund speed. Start for free and get your guaranteed maximum refund. TaxSlayer. File fearlessly.
And now, award-winning news coverage with Brian Hauswirth on 93.9 The Eagle and 93.9theeagle.com.
93.9 The Eagle News Time with Robinson's Cleaners. Robinson's saves you time. It is 6:03, 39 right now in Columbia, 38 degrees in Jefferson City. Partly sunny, today's high 54. Good morning, everyone, and here's some of the stories that we are working on for you at this hour. Ashland police needing your help in solving an attempted kidnapping.
Ashland police say someone called in to report an attempted abduction of a child around 2 o'clock yesterday near the intersection of Oak and Tandy Streets. The child wasn't hurt. Officers searched the area and even used a drone, but were unable to find anyone. They haven't released any details about what the person looked like. John Marsh, 93.9 The Eagle.
All right, thanks so much, John. I should say, I've left a message with the police chief there seeking more information about the suspect description. Waiting to hear back. If you have information, you're urged to call Crime Stoppers, 573-875-TIPS. Meantime, a more than 30-hour filibuster in the Missouri Senate ended early this morning, highlighting some growing tension between the two parties and tension between the Senate Conservative Caucus and other Republicans. Caitlin Schauhorn of the Missouri Times reporting very early this morning, the Senate voting 22-5 to adopt a 6-2 GOP map. It is proposed by the Majority Leader, Caleb Rowden of Columbia. Lake St. Louis Republican Senator Bob Onder accused the Republicans of abandoning their principles. He pushed for a 7-1 map that was voted down 24-8. He accuses Republicans opposed to the 7-1 map of being afraid, being unwilling to fight for GOP principles. The Rowden map does keep Boone County in West Central Missouri's 4th District. Cole-Callaway counties would stay in Blaine Luedtkemeier's East Central Missouri 3rd District. Speaking of Jefferson City, the Missouri House Special Committee on Government Oversight's Republican chair and its top Democrats support a bill from Ashland Sarah Walsh. It would repeal the state's gas tax increase. Ferguson Democratic Representative Rachel Prouty announcing her support during a Tuesday hearing in Jefferson City.
This is a unique opportunity for us to get money back into the pockets of Missourians who absolutely need a break right now. Absolutely need a break.
As for Representative Walsh, she thanks Representative Prouty for her support. She testifies Missouri's 2021 gas tax increase should have gone to a statewide vote. Supporters of the gas tax increase note it was Missouri's first gas tax increase since 1996. Bipartisan support for catalytic converter legislation in Jefferson City. There are a number of people who testified yesterday at the Capitol, and they indicate it's a problem here in mid-Missouri, throughout the state, urban and rural areas. There is still an investigation going on into the incident that happened at the Serve, the nonprofit in Fulton. The chief there, Chief Ladwig, tells 93.9 The Eagle that no arrests have been made and that the investigation is continuing. And a Missouri House Committee hears testimony today on a bill remembering the life and service of the longtime Montgomery City utility superintendent who died in a motorcycle crash here in October. Many of you in Columbia will recognize this name. He also was a high school football official. 59-year-old Russell Lee Burton, known across the area. 35 years as Montgomery City's utility superintendent. Also served on the Montgomery County School Board, was in charge of the Toys for Tots. Representative Jeff Porter of Montgomery City tells the Eagle that Mr. Burton will be he'll be remembering him, presenting that bill this afternoon. It would designate part of Highway 19 as the Russell Lee Burton Memorial Highway. 93.9 The Eagle News, brought to you this hour by Air Serv Heating and Air Conditioning, ensuring the air in which you live and breathe is comfortable, clean. For all your heating needs, log on to airserv.com. 93.9 The Eagle News Time, 6:06. In sports, the Missouri Tiger men's basketball team came from behind, took a brief lead in the second half yesterday on the road in Nashville against Vanderbilt, but they had foul issues. That was a big issue in this game. Mizzou falling to Vanderbilt on the road, 70-62. Javon Pickett for Mizzou scoring a team-high 15 points. Again, Mizzou did lead briefly in that second half. The Doors come back with a 9-0 run. They pull away. Mizzou on the year 9-14. 93.9 The Eagle News Time, 6:07.
I'm ABC 17 Storm Track meteorologist Kevin Schneider. We're going to try to squeeze out one last mild day before we cool off a bit tomorrow. Mix of sun and clouds and a breeze out of the northwest will hold highs into the low 50s this afternoon. That breeze will die down after the sun sets, but we'll keep those partly cloudy skies overhead as lows fall into the upper 20s. We'll be a little bit slower to warm up tomorrow with more sunshine in the forecast and highs in the middle 40s. I'm meteorologist Kevin Schneider, and that's your ABC 17 Storm Track forecast on 93.9 The Eagle.
39 degrees in Columbia.
Eagle Eye Traffic.
And our traffic check is with MidmoHires.com. Local companies looking for local people. MidmoHires.com. Find a job, post your job opening today. 608-93.9 The Eagle, 93.9theeagle.com. Roads are quiet. There are some slick spots, primarily on the side roads right now. Parking lots as well. That part of the issue is that the temperatures hovered right around that 32, 33 degree mark. Roads, though, in very good shape. And if you were missing something, you certainly want to let us know about it. 874-9390, area code 573. 14 coverage in less than 30 minutes. Breaking news immediately. I'm Brian Hauswirth, 93.9 The Eagle.
93.9 The Eagle.
What is happening?
Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Radio Group World Headquarters.
Great news for the American people.
This is Wake Up Columbia with Branden Rathert, featuring Stephanie Bell, News Director Brian Hauswirth, and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you.
Get ready, pal. And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
Obviously, we want to pass a good map, and one that we feel is reflective of the state. But you know, this is not. We don't have an infinite amount of time here to try and find resolution.
There's an unwillingness to fight, an unwillingness to fight for our principles, an unwillingness to fight for our state, an unwillingness to fight for our country.
30 hours? Are you kidding me? Some historical context on what happened in our Capitol in Jefferson City yesterday, Senate floor. Brian and I hanging out at the station all day yesterday, and every time we'd cross paths in the office, they still going? Yep. They still going? Yep. And at one point said, man, what are they talking about now? So we gleaned some of the highlights. Here's what happened in your state's capital yesterday.
That can explain why one local farmer insisted. I've seen that dog time and time again, just a lazy-looking setter dog just laying there. And when he was not sleeping, like so many of his canine peers, Jim was always up for eating. Mm-hmm. At meals, Jim was fed table scraps. His favorite food was cornbread.
30 hours. Almost of that. Bottom line, so what's going on this morning?
And to be clear, that obviously was part of it. Some of it was more policy discussion, and we'll talk more about the Wonder Dog because he is the official state dog in the state of Missouri, and that is in Senator Hoskins's district. But really, what it highlights, Branden, in a nutshell, is there's tension between the Republicans and the Democrats. Everyone knows that, but there's also clearly growing tension between and Denny Hoskins was with us, Stephanie, during this prayer breakfast when Branden was emceeing, and he took shots at Rowden. clearly he kind of held back yesterday on the floor. Bob Onder did not yesterday. Bob Onder clearly accusing Republican leaders, without naming them, of being afraid. And he also made some indications of that on Twitter as well. So basically, the Senate has adopted the Rowd map. It's basically a 6-2 map. It's very similar to what is currently right now. The big difference for our listeners, Randolph County would leave the Vicky Hartzler district in the 4th, go up to Sam Graves in the 6th. And there are a couple of key changes over in the eastern side of the state, primarily in Jefferson County and also St. Charles County. It really protects, in many ways, the Cleaver district. It's going to be virtually impossible for a Republican to win. That said, those six seats do appear to be strongly Republican. So that is where we're at right now. The Senate will gavel back in at noon. At some point, and I'm not a lawyer, but I would think that the two chambers have to form a conference committee, get together, because the House map, I think, is probably a little bit different in some ways. I don't remember Jeffco going into the 2nd district, so they'd have to, but they're very similar. They're very similar districts, but that's where it is. But clearly, there's tension there. And what Hoskins was doing by talking about Jim the Wonder Dog was he was
killing time.
He was killing
30 hours worth.
Killing time, and obviously he's passionate about it because he sponsored the bill. Jim the Wonder Dog also spent time at the University of Missouri back in the day as well, and was very popular.
Well, it was prior to us becoming the Mizzou Tigers, it was the Mizzou Wonder Dogs.
Did you catch the radio references on Twitter last night? Because apparently, I think it was Hoskins who was reading song lyrics, and someone was asking what the request line was, and they wanted to request the next song.
Spice Girls was one of them, I believe.
Baby Shark, was that one of them?
I didn't see that, but yeah, that was going on late last night, and 30 hours, actually close to 31, but no, we've never seen anything quite like this one.
Well, and you're right, Brian. I mean, last year the Senate kind of blew up at the end, ended early, and people thought, wow, this is really unusual for the Senate. And so I think there were some people, who thought when they came back this year, people would have cooled off. But you're right, when we talked to Senator Hoskins, and that would have been the 2nd day of session, we went over what happened on the 1st day of session, and it sounded like they picked up kind of right where they left off, with him accusing of Rowden and some others of lying. And I think it's just escalated from there. And
we were surprised, and I even said, are you saying that I clarified? And he absolutely, and then he said even more. I think Hoskins yesterday, his beef is not so much with Rowden, although he obviously doesn't like the map, but it's with the 14 Republicans in general that voted essentially with the Democrats on this against the 7-1 map. There is, and that gets back to your question, Branden, at 5:30. There is some tension on that particular issue.
As a matter of fact, here's some insight. Arnie Dienoff, who's on the show yesterday, the other person who was up for 30 hours following all that was Arnie Dienoff. 874-9839, the text, caps, and in quotation marks. There is a Missouri Senate war. Now, I have bigger concerns, and I want to get into this 635, the Republican infighting, not just in Missouri. We're on the verge of something really big here, 2022 midterms. And we see what's happening in the Senate. And Mitch McConnell, and on a national level, Murkowski and Manchin and Dorsey. I mean, I think there's a lot of bigger concerns. Do want to get into that. But meanwhile, Greg Razor, Democrat senator, state senator, Kansas City area. That's the guy that Kip Kendrick, when he left locally, that's who he went and worked for prior.
Mizzou graduate as well.
Mizzou grad, they're enjoying this, man.
The process just takes a while, especially when you have angry senators who can talk as long as they want. And we're working through that. We're going to stay here as long as it takes.
I think they're enjoying it. Yeah, when you have 12 senators that are angry, and I'm telling you, that audio from ABC 17, by the way, Hannah Falcon yesterday when she was talking to him, and I was watching this, and it's like you could see he's just like, legs crossed, hands on his knees. Yeah, and I'm exaggerating a little bit, but he's like, yeah, when you got 12 angry senators, that's, look what's happening with the Republicans over there.
Well, and the Democrats played the filibuster very smartly in the Missouri Senate. And if you notice, I mean, we're kind of giggling about what the Republicans were talking about. They read books, they told jokes, they did song lyrics. But when the Democrats got a hold of the microphone, they took digs at people like Eric Schmidt.
Big time.
And they used that microphone to give themselves a because they know everyone's listening in to try. Everyone's asking themselves the same question you two were. Are they still in? Are they still in? Tuning in. And the Democrats used that microphone and used that time to their advantage where, for us, we basically flushed it down the toilet.
And it's spot on what you just said in terms of the aim there. They could have used that opportunity to go to the microphone and criticize the governor. They did not. They really went after the attorney general.
So
on his policies, I mean, but they did say that he's more interested in headlines than he is. But I didn't hear any criticism of the governor. I was expecting that, and I may have missed it, but I don't think so.
So here's another take. And by the way, I think the 6-2 map is fine. I know a lot of people get angry every time I say it, but realistically, yeah, I want a 7-1 map. You bet your sweet rear end I do. But there's a thing called reality, okay? And that's where I am on it. But the other thing, so to an extent, Republicans and Democrats in the Senate yesterday, they were in effect agreeing. Do I have that right, Brian?
Say that again.
The Democrats and the Republicans in the Senate yesterday, they're in effect working together at the very least. Is that a fair assessment?
And it's a great question, and it's a yes and no answer. It's a yes and no answer, and let me clarify on that. They're in agreement, but for different reasons. The Democrats oppose 7-1 because they believe it is unfair, and the Democrats want a 5-3 map. The Republicans, the 14 Republicans, Schatz, Rowden, Holly Rader, and we've mentioned Bern Scatter obviously is in there, Cindy O'Loughlin. They voted against 7-1 primarily because they fear a lawsuit. So their votes against 7-1 were a little bit different. Yes, they did join together and vote against, but the reasons are a little bit different there. So I wouldn't say that they were in lockstep, because I think if push comes to shove, they probably would support a 7-1. But their worry, and Caleb Branden told you this on air last week, Chuck Vasey's hinted it as well, who supports 6-2, by the way. Their worry is if there's a lawsuit, it goes to the courts and the judges end up redrawing it, it could be worse than a 6-2 map is what they're essentially saying.
Quick traffic note. Yep. Apparently 70 eastbound shut down. This is in the Fulton area. Kingdom City exit E. Exit on eastbound 70. It's shut down. They are redirecting traffic. If you're in that area, please call us 874-9390 and let us know what you're seeing. So here is my misunderstanding yesterday. The Wonder Dog thing is like the Missouri. What's the history to that briefly?
Briefly, this was a dog that had a knack of being able to predict who would win the Kentucky Derby. People were stunned. He performed it before the Missouri legislature. The dog would go down to Jeff City, would go to the state fair in Sedalia. Fame spread around the United States. He was featured in Ripley's Believe It or Not, and he's buried, this dog, in Saline County in Marshall. There is a statue of the dog there in Marshall, Missouri.
And it came up.
That can explain why one local farmer insisted. I've seen that dog time and time again.
That was part of that 30-hour filibuster yesterday. So I misunderstood. Oh, the underdog.
There's no need to fear. The underdog is here.
It wasn't the underdog, and Brian had to keep telling me because Hannah and Stephanie will tell you. They'll tell me things 100 times. How do you pronounce this guy's name? How do you pronounce this guy's name?
Oh, my gosh. All the time.
And 2 minutes later, what am I doing? I'm asking again.
Saying it wrong.
And I do it all the time, so I misunderstood, and that's the way my memory is, and I'm trying to deal with it. So Brian kept saying, no, it's not the underdog, it's the Wonder Dog. So then I'm coming back, okay, I got this now. It's Deputy Dog. I'm thinking, okay, I've got this.
Gosh.
I've got it figured out. And this is great because I remember watching as a little kid. Remember we'd watch Deputy Dog on the TV?
Here it comes, the Deputy Dog Show, starring that lovable lawman with a badge of tin and a heart of gold. Good old Deputy Dog.
What?
That's a show from like the 1960s, I believe. Yes.
I've never heard that one. I've heard of Underdog, but not Deputy Dog.
So it's not
awesome.
It's not Wonder Dog. It's not Deputy Dog. It's
Jim the Wonder Dog, and there is actually a website. It's the professional website, jimthewonderdog.org, and you can click on. They've got photos, the history there, how he predicted winners of the Kentucky Derby. 7 Kentucky Derby winners this dog predicted.
As a matter of fact, I have a song. There's some Boonville folks. Kathy Barton and Dave Parrott did a song called Jim the Wonder Dog song, which I want to play here shortly, but I want to bring our attention back to a traffic issue right now that's apparently happening. Several folks are working on this for us. Looks like there's an accident right after the Kingdom City exit, and they are directing traffic off the interstates. That's Kingdom City exit, eastbound 70. It's shut down. Traffic is being redirected. If you're in that area, please let us know. 874-9390. Just kind of a quick glimpse into what you're seeing. You can help out your fellow Missourians this morning. Here's your fellow Missourian, Stephanie Bell. Hannah, the producer. Brian Hauswirth is here. My name is Branden Rathert. Stephanie Bell working on the daily D.C. rundown. I don't know what's underneath the circus tent this morning, but I know what's underneath the circus tent. There's a lot of things going on. Party infighting in Missouri, nationally, too.
Party infighting, that's what we'll start with.
We'll highlight that. Coming up, daily D.C. rundown here on 93.9 The Eagle.
They called them
An eye on the nation, an eagle eye on mid-Missouri. Wake Up Columbia with Branden Rathert. 93.9, The Eagle.
With regard to the suggestion that the RNC should be in the business of picking and choosing Republicans who ought to be supported, traditionally the view of the national party committees is that we support all members of our party, regardless of their positions on some issues.
So not just infighting potentially here in the state of Missouri, nationwide. Mitch McConnell getting us into today's daily DC rundown. I do want to mention this really quick, though. Apparently traffic really jammed up. We're talking there's an accident right after the Kingdom City exit, eastbound 70. It's shut down. They're redirecting traffic. Apparently a truck has lost its load. So if you're using that for your route this morning, be aware, accident right after Kingdom City, eastbound 70. It's shut down. What's Mitch doing?
He is commenting. So last week, the RNC folks were in Salt Lake City. They met and they actually took a voice vote to approve official censures of Representatives Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. And Mitch McConnell is not happy. And basically he said the issue is whether or not the RNC should be sort of a singling out of members or our party who singling out members of our party who may have different views than the majority. This is not the job of the RNC. But is it? I mean, we have a party platform. So if someone's out there saying I'm a Republican, but they're standing against everything in the party platform, is it not kind of the party's job to police who you allow in and out of the party? I don't know.
And isn't Mitch then kind of doing the same thing by calling
out?
He's calling them out for calling people out.
Good point. And I can only imagine, if Lincoln Days is coming up this Saturday, right? Can you imagine if the powers that be in the Missouri Republican Party started calling people out and censuring people who they felt like weren't, they would all be pointing fingers at each other. And so, I mean, I think the point, that he's trying to make, and I think the point that we all, as Republicans should be thinking about is we do have a really big tent and there are on the details we can disagree. And sometimes those feel very big. And in congressional redistricting, it is big. But yeah, what are the parameters with which we invite people or uninvite people from the 10?
As long as they agree with everything I say, they're okay. It's the ones that disagree with me that I have an issue with. That's your daily DC rundown on 93.9 The Eagle, redistricting statewide, nationwide, and in the Columbia city limits. We'll cover more of that 6:35. I think the bigger issue with party infighting is another topic we're going to be covering at 6:35 here on 93.9 The Eagle.
I'm Chris Foster. New York and Illinois are joining other states with Democrats as governors announcing an end to most mask mandates for coronavirus protection. It goes against unchanged federal guidance.
Right now, our CDC guidance has not changed. We have and continue to recommend masking in areas of high and substantial transmission. That is essentially everywhere in the country in public indoor settings.
Centers for Disease Control Director Dr. Michelle Walensky. The Omicron variant of COVID-19 is detected in wild deer in New York.
Researchers at Pennsylvania State University say when a virus spills over to another species, it provides more opportunities for it to evolve. But for now, scientists don't know if deer can pass the virus back to humans.
Fox's Carmen Roberts. Bail set at $1 million for a man charged with murdering someone at a supermarket in Richland, Washington, Monday. No word on a motive. The victim was an Instacart shopper and delivery driver. Another man's in critical condition. America's listening to Fox News.
93.9 The Eagle News Time with Robinson's Cleaners. Robinson saves you time. It is 6:31. Right now we do have clear skies In Columbia, we're expecting a warm day today, and some of that ice has melted off from the last couple of days. Partly sunny, our high 54. Tonight, clear, low near 28. Tomorrow is sunny and a high of 47 degrees. Good morning, everyone, and here's some of the stories that we are working on for you at this hour. We'll begin this hour with breaking news. Just got off the phone with the Missouri State Highway Patrol and with MoDOT. In Missouri, state troopers say eastbound I-70 at the 148-mile marker in Kingdom City is closed right now. It's due to a crash. Both eastbound lanes are blocked. Traffic is being diverted to Highway 54 in Kingdom City. MoDOT crews are telling me this crash involves a tractor-trailer. Traffic is backed up a mile and a half, and it continues right now. MoDOT says the traffic is jammed at those lights in Kingdom City. They are urging you to avoid that area if at all possible. So again, if you're heading that way, expect some major delays. Traffic backed up a mile and a half. That's only going to get longer, you truckers that are heading into that area, because the lights are jammed right now in Kingdom City. We'll have another update on this. I'll check in again with them right before the 7 o'clock news. Meantime, authorities in the southern Boone County town of Ashland used a drone and a helicopter to search for the suspect in an attempted abduction Tuesday afternoon. They were unable to find the suspect. Ashland police say the incident happened at about 1:45 at Oak and Tandy. They say the juvenile was not physically harmed, and once officers obtained a suspect description, they immediately canvassed the area. They also launched a drone and conducted an air search. Anyone with information is urged to call Crime Stoppers at number 875-TIPS, area code 573. Senate filibuster on congressional redistricting ending late last night or overnight in Jefferson City after more than 30 hours of debate. The Missouri Times reports the Senate finally adopted a 6-2 GOP map from Senate Majority Leader Caleb Browden. That vote 22-5. The Senate has voted 24-8 against the 7-1 Missouri GOP congressional map. Amid Missouri lawmakers' bill to repeal the state's gas tax increase has the support of House Government Oversight Committee's GOP chair and the top Democrat. Ashland Republican Representative Sarah Walsh testified before the committee on Tuesday and says obtaining a rebate on the gas tax increase is complex.
Mother basically testified, she's like, in order, if the gas pump's out of paper, in order for her to go in, she can't just abandon her kids and leave them in the car. So she said, take them out of a 5-point seat belt, get them all out of that, car seat, haul them into to wait in a long line, to get basically a copy.
That's Sarah Walsh testifying before the Missouri House Government Oversight Committee yesterday. Sarah Walsh has the support of the chairman, Jared Taylor of Nixa, and the committee's ranking Democrat, Ferguson Representative Rachel Prouty, who says Missourians deserve and need this break in terms of costs. And despite a packed chamber on Monday evening, Columbia Councilman Matt Pitzer says there is not unanimous support across the city for using Wabash as an emergency overnight warming center. 93.9 The Eagle News is brought to you this hour by Mid-America Mortgage. Check them out, midamericamortgage.us, and apply now for a loan on your dream home. 93.9 The Eagle News time, 6:35. Turning our attention now to sports. The Missouri Tiger men's basketball team had foul issues last night. They fell to Vanderbilt on the road 70-62. Mizzou's Javon Pickett scoring a team-high 15 points. Mizzou did fight back in the game, leading briefly in the second half. Doors taking a 9-0 run. They pulled away. Mizzou on the year right now, 9-14. Our sports is brought to you this hour by Witt Print Shop. Witt Print Shop, where your printed products are so much more than ink and paper. 93.9 The Eagle News Time, 6:35. Traffic check, midmohires.com. Local companies are looking for local people. Visit midmohires.com to find a job or post your job opening today. Again, if you're just tuning into us right now, eastbound I-70, both lanes are blocked. Essentially, it is closed right now. 148-mile marker in Kingdom City. MoDOT tells me it involves a tractor-trailer. Traffic backed up a mile and a half. That's only going to get longer right now because traffic is jamming at those lights in Kingdom City. If you're in that area, have additional information, 573-874-9390. You can call or text us. I'm Brian Hauswirth, 93.9 The Eagle.
I wondered if he should have been reprimanded more strongly, given the president's pledge on his first day in office to, fire anybody who mistreated their employees.
Well, let me just give you an overview of what we have done to date, and I know there may be more questions on this, of course, which we will.
Does the fact that Dr. Linder has a job still cheapen the president's promise to fire anyone who treats colleagues with disrespect on the spot?
Well, again, I would just reiterate that the president takes his commitment to having a respectful work environment.
The patient found credible evidence of multiple women having complained to other staff about negative interactions with him, with a pattern of abusive and disrespectful behavior. Again, the president, at the outset of this administration, said, I will fire you on the spot, no ifs, ands, or buts. So why is he not being fired?
Well, Matt, let me first say that no one is suggesting that this behavior is acceptable.
So that was Monday while the Lander guy was still employed after apparently numerous allegations. And apparently we're learning this morning had some allegations even prior to him being appointed in the Biden administration. There was a history of this guy apparently bullying in the workplace and what those reporters are talking about there, because they weren't getting a straight, you heard the same question over and over. That's from the same press conference the other day, because she wasn't giving straight answers to the question. The question, hey, you guys said this, but this, well, I know, but we're crystal clear on this. Well, no, you're not, because you're saying you're crystal clear, but you're not acting like you were crystal clear on this statement from Joe over a year ago.
But I'm not joking when I say this. If you're ever working with me and I hear you treat another colleague with disrespect, talk down to someone, I promise you I will fire you on the spot.
And it didn't happen.
Sure didn't.
And there was the reporter that was harassing, or somebody in his staff who was harassing a female reporter, like within, I think, days of him taking office. And the guy was there for a while, and then they shuffled him around. And then some of the folks in the news, they heard about it, and then they did a whole story like, hey, you said.
The problem is, I mean, he goes to states and can't even get folks to stand on the stage with him. Can you imagine trying to recruit people into work for the Biden administration right now? He can't afford to fire people because who's going to come work for him?
By the way, I do have a line on a job opening for you. If you're good at social media, the Stacey Abrams campaign is looking for a social media director. Don't know if it's because of what happened over the weekend, but probably if their social media director was fired, probably a good reason.
You have to have really good Photoshop skills. So if, for instance, you were to happen to take a picture of her and she was unmasked, you just have to make sure that your Photoshop is good enough that no picture ever gets posted of her without a mask on.
Wait, I've Photoshopped masks on people's faces before.
You have.
I should apply.
So Stacey Abrams, and now there's more photos coming out, because originally Stacey Abrams, so you know that she was with school kids. And here's the thing, you don't want to wear a mask, great, Stacey. But she's going around, and here's a teachable moment. If you have a discussion with somebody at work today and they talk about mask mandates, or let's say the mindset of a progressive, here is yet another example in a long line of John Kerry, Nancy Pelosi, the governor of Gavin Newsom, who, by the way, just days after he got busted not wearing a mask with a whole bunch of people, what's he doing all of a sudden? Oh, we're going to roll back some of our mask mandates and stuff. My goodness. So here's the teachable moment. You can tell these people when you guys have discussions about politics, you say, see, if you're of that far left Democrat progressive mindset, there is a long line, and we're not cherry picking people here. We're talking some of the biggest names in the Democrat Party: Pelosi, John Kerry, Gavin Newsom, Stacey Abrams. They want you. They want everybody else to do this stuff. They don't want to do it. And that tells me two things. Number one, they're hypocrites. Number two, they really don't believe the mask work. They've been telling us the mask work, the mask work. Well, if you believe so much that the mask work, why are you not wearing one? And that's because of two reasons. Number one, you're a hypocrite, or, they really don't work as well as you've been telling us.
Yeah, even people on their own side recently have been coming out and saying, okay, it's clear. The cloth mask that, people are touching with their hands, that they put on the floorboard of their car, that, you find all littered all over the parking lots and other buildings, those things. And kids, it's halfway down your chin, it's over on the side, they're swinging it around on their finger. They're They're not helping anybody.
It's not.
And adults aren't much better than kids, honestly.
And people are done. By the way, Blake Willoughby, he's Columbia Public School Board member, currently on the board. He's the incumbent seeking re-election. His thoughts on some of these things, that's coming up at 7:35. Meanwhile, Stacey Abrams apologizing. I don't know, is she apologizing because she didn't wear a mask? Is she apologizing because she got caught? Is she apologizing for being a hypocrite? Like, couldn't you just come out and say, hey, own it, right? That's what I always say. Own it, man. You got a character defect, own it, try to work on it.
It's like this guy who said a foul language to the lady. Said some foul language. Senior Republican lawmaker, so it was Democratic Rep Joyce Beatty and Rep Hal Rogers from Kentucky. And I guess they got into a couple of altercations about mask wearing. The Democrat obviously wanted him to wear a mask. They got on this train. I think he actually poked her in the middle of the back and said, get on the train. And she said, don't touch me. And he said, kiss my bleep. And now he's apologizing. But, it's not hypocritical. It's how he really feels, right? He didn't want to wear a mask. She got up in his face about it. And anybody who's been in that situation when you're not required to wear a mask and someone kind of attacks you and is like, why aren't you wearing a mask? I get pretty, I've been like, should I say something? Should I, do I want to be quiet? It depends on where I am and how angry the person looks, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, he just said it. And now he is coming out and said, I should have used different words, but he was pretty fired up. And he just said, you know what?
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
So before I get into this Stacey Abrams apology, check this out. Travis. I'm going to nominate Travis for one of our winners of the week Friday morning, 8:35. We do it every Feel Good Friday. So if Joe Biden is saying, I will fire anybody on the spot who's rude or who treats people poorly, shouldn't have Joe Biden fired himself when he called Fox's Pete Ducey a stupid SOB? Point
Good
for
point.
Travis this morning.
That is a very valid point.
All right. Stacey Abrams and her apology for getting, for 2 years now, wear a mask. They work. Well, Stacey, if they work, how come you're not wearing one around kids?
I will say this. I went to read to kids for an African-American read-in day. I approached the podium with my mask on. I followed the protocols. I told the kids I'm taking my mask off because I'm reading to kids who are listening remotely as well. And
here comes the excuse. This is the best part. Here's her excuse for not remembering to put on a mask while she goes and sits with kids.
We were socially distanced. The kids were socially distanced from me. I told them that's what I was doing. And in the excitement after I finished, because it was so much fun working with those kids, I took a picture, and that was a mistake.
The mistake was that the picture was taken?
I got caught.
That person who took the picture and posted on social media is without a job this morning.
Yeah, when I'm flying 80 miles an hour down the highway, the mistake is that I passed a highway patrolman.
There's more.
Protocols matter in protecting our kids.
No, they don't. Or else you would follow them. And not just the protocols and the rules, the whole thing besides the rules and the mandates, and we'll move on, is that you don't believe the masks work as well as you have been saying. Good morning, Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
There's Hannah, the producer.
What up?
My name is Branden Rathert. Still watching this accident right after Kingdom City, the Kingdom City exit. Eastbound 70, it's apparently shut down. They're redirecting traffic there. And if you're in that area, what you're seeing, because apparently it's a truck that's overturned. They're working on it. Brian Hauswirth right now in the newsroom trying to get you more info for what we're understanding. A truck has lost its load.
Yeah, and my first question was, well, what did it have? Because there's always those silly times where the truck, loses animals or some, peanut butter.
Molasses.
Yeah, feathers.
Bottles of tequila.
So, yeah, is there something crazy piled up all over the highway? Let us know.
874-9390. 874-9390. If there's something we can do for you, you can also reach out to us on that phone number. So I do want to get to some of this Republican infight here in Missouri and nationwide, because I think all conventional wisdom says, listen, 2022 midterms, conservatives are going to clean house. And I think there's been a lot of excitement about that for a while. And I don't know about anybody else, but I'm starting to go, maybe it's not going to be as big as we think, because we look at the infighting with Missouri Republicans in Jefferson City right now, in effect fighting for 30 hours, and they ain't done. They're going into round 87, just taking a little nap and a smoke break right now before they go back at it. So you have that. And Mitch McConnell led off the daily D.C. rundown with Stephanie Bell. He's calling out Republicans in the Republican committee at the very least.
Yeah, the RNC censured 2 members, the folks serving on the January 6th committee, and he was basically saying, you know what, that's not really the position of the RNC. We shouldn't be calling out individual members. We're a big tent. We invite everybody to the party, which again, do we? I mean, is that not? I mean, don't we have a party platform for a reason? Aren't there certain things where we would, take issue with saying, and I think he needed to be more specific. I think with respect to people serving on this committee, he said that's clearly within the scope of, the general party, and the fact that they're serving on the committee doesn't make them, not Republicans. But again, I mean, there's some real questions here in Missouri, because that's exactly what was being levied on the floor last night was you are not, unless you support the 7-1 map, you are not a true conservative. You're joining with the Democrats. You've betrayed your party. I mean, we heard all of those things. And so who's a real conservative is really going to be, is a question not only in Missouri, but a question that a lot of people I think are asking themselves and are looking to the election and asking, is the person I've elected who has an R behind their name, what does that mean?
Good point. And I wonder, because, one of the big things, and I think some of us might start getting tired of hearing me talk about this so much. It's not the story of 2015. Hannah, did I ever tell you the story about 20?
Oh, my gosh.
It's not Columbia Public Schools, who, by the way, they do a really good job. Officials in the Columbia Public School District do a great job of helping homeless kids and family in that transitory period. But the other thing that I've been really big on is messaging, and not just to ourselves, to the people that aren't under a tent, because they have theirs. They're probably not going to move. Does everybody agree with that? There's a lot of folks, conservatives, probably not going to leave this tent. So what about all those folks milling around outside both tents? And this is something I've been big on. As a matter of fact, I found a guest who agrees with me.
Huh. How long did it take you to cherry pick that one?
3 weeks. No, this guy, so I've heard his name before, which is why it caught my attention. He's a political scientist, author, Tony Woodlief. Polling data shows sinking support for Biden among independents, which could potentially be good. I want to hear what he has to say. Please be here. 8:10. 8:10 is when this guy is going to be here. He's an author, political scientist. Polling data showing sinking support for Biden among independents. We are glad that you are with us this morning. By the way, if you're out where the along eastbound
Everyone else takes it too seriously. Thank God you get it. This is Wake Up Columbia with Branden Rathert, 93.9 The Eagle.
We don't want you here. 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 We don't want you.
All right, so I don't like to do this, but I'll do it since the national... Come on, I just got in. Give me 3 seconds, Hannah. You already know where I'm going with this.
Well, I just have to laugh at I don't like to talk about this, but...
I'm going to anyway. You're right, it does sound stupid, but a lot of these national news outlets, what's happening in Canada, by the way, maybe it's working. There are several provinces in Canada. This has to do with the truck rally convoy is what they've been doing. All these truckers go into Canada right along the border and into... I can't remember if it's Ontario or Ottawa. Forgive my
I think Ottawa.
Geography skills. I know where Marshall, Missouri is. It's the home of the Wonder Dog.
Wow. And you even got the name of the dog right that time.
The Wonder Dog, Marshall, Missouri. But anyhow, so these truckers, the vaccine mandates in Canada, they're like, no, so they've been parking and maybe it's working. Because now several provinces in Canada, provinces are saying, yeah, maybe, and there's a lot of states all of a sudden doing this. Maybe we should back off this stuff, including Gavin Newsom in California, I'm assuming, because he just got busted maskless hanging out with almost 80,000 other people. But maybe it's working. Maybe their voices are being heard. But I'm going to do this. I'm going to compare because a lot of the folks in the national news are doing it. They're going, well, compared to the BLM protest, and the national news outlets are trying to paint this thing like it's, oh my God, and MSNBC did a really good job probably telling us some things behind the scenes that a lot of us haven't seen. How bad is it getting at this trucker rally in Canada?
This is not just a protest. Ottawa, like any capital city, is used to a protest. But here, right beside me, they've set up a Plinko table, one of those games you would see on The Price is Right. They have open fire pits that are burning throughout the downtown. They have villages, essentially. They built structures on the street to keep people warm. They have a full set of, I saw some pizza ovens the other day. Even in one spot, organizers had 3 different...
Oh, my God, pizza ovens in Plinko? Oh, God. But that's MSNBC. This reporter's trying to, and she's talking about open fire pits. Yeah, they have fire pits like you would have camping because it's Canada and it's February, and in February in Canada, it's
cold.
My goodness.
They're trying to paint the picture that is violent because, there's this whole GoFundMe controversy, and they raised all this money, and then GoFundMe basically says, well, we can't support anything violent, so now we're going to take your money and give it to people that we like. And so the news media is doing everything it can because if they can't raise money, then, they have an issue with their protests. So the news media is going to do anything to try to paint it as violent, but that was a terrible job. Terrible.
When you get into work this morning, will you do me and Stephanie and Hannah, the producer, and Brian Hauswirth a favor? Will you go in and hear how bad that Canadian truck convoy is getting? They've got Plinko tables and...
It sounds kind of like a tailgate.
Yeah.
Sounds kind of fun.
It does.
And pizza ovens. I was cool with the Plinko tables, but they brought in pizza ovens. Oh, my God. What's the world come to? By the way, regarding GoFundMe, Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler joins us tomorrow morning, 8:10. We're going to be talking about that very issue you just brought up. That's tomorrow on 93.9 The Eagle.
Another angry night in Loudoun County, Virginia. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News.
Your policies are now more of a threat to my children's long-term well-being, health, and potential than COVID ever was.
As parents like him spoke out against masks at a school board meeting, a procession of suspended students served members with cease and desist affidavits, urging them to comply with Republican Governor Glenn Youngkin's order allowing kids to opt out of wearing masks in school. Virginia's legislature is expected to approve an opt-out law with some Democrats in support, while two more Democrat-led states get ready to lift or revise mask mandates. Fox's Evan Brown has this update live.
Yeah, Dave, New York and Illinois are joining California, Connecticut, Oregon, and Delaware in doing away with those masking orders. Each of those states are led by Democratic Party governors who, for much of the pandemic, championed the ongoing mask policies. The policy changes come amid signs that public sentiment is shifting, though case numbers in many of these states are starting to level off from the Omicron variant surge. But the CDC is still saying now is not the time to ease those mandates, Dave.
Evan, Michigan Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer, who faced a lot of criticism for her COVID restrictions, could have been hurt by them. A second man expected to plead guilty today in the alleged plot to kidnap Governor Whitmer and could help prosecutors in the trial against 4 others next month. Amid the ongoing surge of migrants coming to America, the Biden administration is working on a new way to deal with them.
Put more illegal immigrants on the streets rather than in detention centers, focusing on the population of single adults that is normally detained. Now it will target in its pilot program cities including Baltimore and Houston, releasing about 100 to 200 single adult migrants with ankle monitors or other tracking devices, and they must be home from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m.
Fox's Griff Jenkins. Team USA's finally struck Olympic gold. Lindsay Jacobella's got the gold in snowboard cross. The Americans now have 7 overall medals. America's listening to Fox News.
Why does Walgreens offer copays as low as $0 and 90-day refills? Because we care about Medicare, so you don't have to. I mean, do you really care to hear me go on about same-day prescription delivery making your life easier? Or how there's a pharmacy expert available 24/7 and one-click refills? Well, I just did anyways. Fill your Medicare prescriptions with Walgreens and save.
$0 copays apply to Tier 1 generic drugs and select plans with Walgreens as a preferred pharmacy. Restrictions apply. See walgreens.com/Medicare for complete details.
Getting your guaranteed maximum refund with TaxSlayer feels like discovering a refund tree has grown in your backyard.
I'm the refund tree.
Sawing off its branches.
Hey.
Feeding them through a wood chipper.
My branches! My beautiful branches!
And dancing in its refund rain. Start for free and get your guaranteed maximum refund. TaxSlayer. File fearlessly.
.939 The Eagle News Time with Robinson's Cleaners. Robinson saves you time. Right now, clear skies. 38 is our current temperature in Columbia. We're expecting a high today of around 54. Clear skies tonight, low near 28. Tomorrow is sunny and a high of 47 degrees. 38 right now in Columbia. Good morning, everyone. And here's some of the stories we are working on for you at this hour, and we will begin with breaking news on I-70 right now. Missouri State Troopers say eastbound I-70 at the 148-mile marker in Kingdom City is essentially closed now. Both lanes blocked due to a crash. It does involve a semi. Both eastbound lanes blocked. Traffic being diverted to Highway 54 in Kingdom City. MoDOT is telling 93.9 The Eagle this crash involves a tractor-trailer, and they're telling me that traffic is backed up about 1.5 miles, and they are urging everyone to avoid that area. Hard to do. There aren't a whole lot of roads to get off there. There's a couple of outer roads, some other areas to go to. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck in the traffic at the lights in Kingdom City. I'm told by MoDOT the traffic has been just jamming at those lights in Kingdom City. Avoid the area if at all possible. There's no word on any serious injuries right now, but again, that is going on as we speak. We'll try to get another update from MoDOT here in a little bit. Meantime, Ashland police are continuing their investigation into an attempted kidnapping.
Ashland police say someone called in to report an attempted abduction of a child around 2 o'clock yesterday near the intersection of Oak and Tandy Streets. The child wasn't hurt. Officers searched the area and even used a drone, but were unable to find anyone. They haven't released any details about what the person looked like. John Marsh, 93.9, The Eagle.
All right, John, thank you. And again, anyone with information on that attempted abduction in Ashland is urged to call Crime Stoppers. The phone number there, 573-875-TIPS. A 30-hour-plus filibuster in the Missouri Senate is finally ended early this morning. It highlighted some growing tension between the two parties and tension as well between the Senate Conservative Caucus and other Republicans. Caleb Rowden's new 6-2 map is very similar to what we've seen before. It does take Randolph County out of the 4th District, moves it up to Sam Graves' 6th District, which is primarily North Missouri. Also, Saline, Lafayette counties would go into the 4th District as well. And Emmanuel Cleaver's district would primarily be a Kansas City district. Cole-Callaway County in that Rowden map would stay in the East Central Missouri 3rd District. And the Missouri House Special Committee on Government Oversight's GOP chair and its top Democrats support a bill from Ashland Sarah Walsh who would repeal the state's gas tax increase. Ferguson Democratic Representative Rachel Prouty announcing her support of Sarah Walsh's bill during a Tuesday hearing in Jefferson City.
This is a unique opportunity for us to get money back into the pockets of Missourians who absolutely need a break right now. Absolutely need a break.
As for Representative Walsh, she thanks Representative Prouty for her support. She also testifies Missouri's 2021 gas tax increase should have gone to a statewide vote. 93.9 The Eagle News is brought to you this hour by The Candy Factory. They're in downtown Columbia, and they have chocolate-covered strawberries online. TheCandyFactoryOnline.com. 93.9 The Eagle News Time, 7:06. In sports, the Missouri Tiger men's basketball team with foul issues last night. They fall to Vandy on the road 70-62. Javon Pickett in the game, a team-high 15 points. Mizzou fought back in this game. Took a brief lead in the second half. However, the Doors coming back on a 9-0 run, the Commodores, and they pull away in Nashville. Mizzou now on the year 9-14 on the season. Their opponent on Saturday will be Ole Miss. That'll be the rally for Ryan Luce game, the anti-cancer game, if you will, and that game will be on Saturday evening right here in Columbia. 93.9 The Eagle News Time, 7:07. All right, Kevin, thank you. We do have clear skies right now, 38 degrees. And our traffic check is with MidmoHires.com. Local companies looking for local people. MidmoHires.com. Find a job, post your job opening today. Again, a reminder for those of you on I-70 right now, traffic is jammed. The eastbound lanes, I-70, 148-mile marker. That's in Callaway County near Kingdom City. Tractor trailer is involved. Last check from MoDOT, they tell me traffic backed up about 1.5 miles. The problem is everyone's getting stuck at these lights in Kingdom City. There's a McDonald's there. There's a Taco Bell. Pretty much all their restaurants and everything, the gas stations are right there, and those lights are jammed right now. So avoid the area if at all possible. We'll get another update from MoDOT in a little bit. If you want to report a traffic issue, call or text us 573-874-9390. More team coverage in less than 30 minutes. Breaking news immediately. I'm Brian Hauswirth, 93.9 The Eagle.
Obviously, we want to pass a good map and one that we feel is reflective of the state. But, you know, this is not, we don't have an infinite amount of time here to try and find resolution.
An unwillingness to fight for our principles, an unwillingness to fight for our state, an unwillingness to fight for our country.
30 hours and they ain't done. They're taking an extended smoke break. And I guess I don't know how many people in this, nor do I care how many smoke. 30 hours of all kinds of things. You said you heard something. So we had one senator talking about, and I thought this was great because I got, you know, I was born in Missouri. I've spent a better part of my life here, except for when I was gone for 25 years. But other than the 25 years that I was in Florida and Idaho, most of my life has been spent here in Missouri. And I'll go back to conversations I had with my dad when I was 16 years old. I know everything, Dad. I thought I knew everything about Missouri, and I learned something new because it came up on the floor yesterday in the Senate during 30 hours of killing time.
They refused to do dog tricks, such basics as rolling over or playing dead. Mr. Sam said in a newspaper interview that Jim does not have a trick of jumping around like...
Talking about the Wonder Dog. And I had never heard of this, and it's a fascinating piece of Missouri history.
It really is. My first radio job, full-time, was in a little town called Carrollton, Missouri. And Drew Locke, a lot of his family still lives up there. Drew was not born, by the way, when I worked there. That's how long ago it's been. But I would cover the Marshall City Council meetings twice a month. In my first Marshall Council meeting back in 1993, the flood of 93 was going on. I heard the late Mayor Mitch Geisler, the late mayor, great guy. He talked about this Jim the Wonder Dog, and it's the first time I'd heard of him and heard about him many, many years when I got to Jeff City at the Capitol. Denny Hoskins filed this bill over and over. It had been filed, a guy named Dean Dorman. Our listeners might remember him from over in Lamont. He filed the bill years ago as well. Finally was able to get it through, but Jim the Wonder Dog, I believe, is the official dog, but this was a dog that was out of Marshall, Saline County, reportedly could pass a command test with flying colors, would actually perform for the lawmakers and the state fair, and could predict who would win the World Series and the Kentucky Derby.
And with sports betting becoming more acceptable, which, can you imagine how much money this dog would be worth today?
It's amazing.
So he has his own merch. He has a website. Brian mentioned it earlier, jimthewonderdog.org, and you can get like a Christmas ornament, a keychain, a T-shirt, some books about the history.
It's amazing.
Now, you've been here all your life. Had you heard of Jim the Wonder Dog?
I have heard of Jim the Wonder Dog, and also there's another famous dog called Old Drum, and his statue was actually in the Missouri Supreme Court, and the neighbor killed the dog, and then the case ended up going all the way to the Supreme Court for the guy to get damages for your neighbor killing your dog. And so Missouri has a long history of pseudo-famous dogs.
Yeah, pretty impressive. Bottom line, they're going back at it, I guess, later today after 30 hours. I don't know, human necessity said, you know what? I got to go to the bathroom here. I've been holding this for 30 hours, man. They get bathroom breaks. Interesting rule, though, on some things they can't do during this
I think the biggest thing is for people that were listening in, generally you're not supposed to, personal tax obviously is a big deal, but you cannot use and it's kind of unusual, some other states allow it, you can't call a senator by name. When Bob Onder was asking for a quorum, he said, somebody find 18, somebody find 18. Well, people were listening probably wondering, well, what's he talking about? 18 would be State Senator Cindy O'Loughlin from the 18th. They'll say the senator from the 2nd is recognized, the senator from the 21st. It's
so,
just
in other words, they're not
unusual.
going, okay, Cindy, it's your turn.
They don't do that. And in fact, they're actually, they'll get gavelled down if they mention, even by their own party, if they mention their name, even if it's in a positive way. So it is, for people that don't follow it closely, it's hard unless they know the districts. It may be hard for them to even know who's talking if they don't know the voice.
You also can't use props, and so they have to be careful about that. I heard some people mention that one, and I think it was Senator Branden who was talking, and he was reading constituent mail, and he said his own name, and they gavelled him down, and he was like, wait, I can't say my own name? And they're like, no names. And he was like, okay, well, we'll move on.
But yet they said the Attorney General, they didn't mention him by name, but clearly some of the Democrats were critical of him during the filibuster. But yeah, it is unusual, and who knows what's going to happen when they come back at
6-2 is what's going to happen. As a matter of fact, Scott Fawn, who knows Missouri politics, this guy's lurking around the Capitol all the time. I agree with his. I shouldn't use the word lurking. Did that give it kind of a negative connotation? Scott Fawn's tweet not saying that this might have been a big waste of time, or that the one guy in the Capitol that can draw maps has been up for 40-plus hours and exhausted, but maybe I'm saying both. And I said, yeah, maybe. That's just my take on it. Don't be mad. It's my opinion. Incidentally, so you guys know I'm new to this Twitter thing. Newish.
Here we go again.
No, this is kind of cool. I just discovered this.
You just discovered Twitter?
In effect, yeah. So you can hit all of us up on Twitter. Where are you, Brian?
At Brian on the air.
Stephanie S. Bell.
Producer _ Hannah.
Rathert Branden. Branden. Rathert Branden. So you can watch the show by going to the 93.9 The Eagle YouTube channel. You can watch on Facebook if you want. I think more and more people are switching to watching the show on YouTube. Matter of fact, we got a comment about your wardrobe, Hauswirth.
Got a comment on my wardrobe, okay.
Yeah, but I don't think they're watching today's show. I think they watch all the time and notice your affinity for Alabama gear. That's
great.
I think more and more people are switching to YouTube, and the reason being is what they're telling us. Like, well, if I put it up on YouTube, it's just kind of easier to access. And if I put it up on the TV in the living room while people are running around, getting ready to run the kids to school, everybody kind of gets a feel of what's going on. But you can watch on Twitter too. I've posted on at Rathert Branden. You can go there and watch. Not that anybody
that links to YouTube.
Yeah, it's just
yeah. But it looks good. I wasn't sure how the link was going to work.
So you can go to my Twitter to get the YouTube link.
All right, let's move forward because I ain't making sense. Stephanie Bell, good morning.
Good morning.
Mr. Brian Hauswirth.
Good morning.
Good morning,
to see you.
There's Hannah. How are you today?
I'm good. You thought you did something.
You did a good job, Brandon.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You get 10 out of 10 for computer skills today.
Well, and it is confused because there is a program and reporters all over that a lot of reporters listen to us, by the way, a lot of the TV in the morning. It's called WordPress. It's very similar to what you talked about. In some of those links, when you even get ready to tweet it out, they don't necessarily look right.
They don't show up, yeah.
They don't look right, but they do. You have to click on it. Yeah. WordPress can have its glitches, for sure.
So if you want to watch on Twitter, go to YouTube. I've included, or go to Twitter, at Rathert Branden.
You've
Click
confused
that,
yourself.
And it will go to the YouTube feed, which is gleaning from our Wake Up Columbia Facebook feed. Quick traffic note. Some folks, so we've had some issues this morning in Fulton. Kingdom City Rec is apparently cleared up. There was an accident right after Kingdom City. Eastbound 70 was shut down earlier this morning. We've got folks, including Candace, saying apparently that it's back up. Mark McCloskey was just on the show a couple of weeks ago and then did a presentation for the Columbia Pachyderms. By the way, Senator Rick Bratton, who's running for the 4th Congressional District seat, he's going to be in town for a couple of events next week. One of them will be the Boone County Pachyderm event, which is on a Tuesday night. That's at Grand Cru Restaurant. Mark McCloskey, his name splashed across national news headlines this morning.
Yeah, so apparently the Missouri Supreme Court, and he had mentioned this on the show, that his law license, was under review, and the Missouri Supreme Court issued their decision yesterday, apparently suspending the law license of Mark McCloskey and his wife Patricia as well, related back to his criminal conviction. If you recall, he pleaded guilty to a Class C misdemeanor of assault. But at the same time, I believe what the Supreme Court actually did was they did suspend him, but then they stayed the suspension and put him on probation.
So is it like this? Tell me if this is comparable. When I was 17, somebody stole some fishing poles. And of it was that 17-year-old who stole the fishing poles don't even fish.
Huh.
But after a gallon of homemade wine, hey, maybe I would like to fish. Give me your poles. Anyhow, so I got in trouble, and so I got a sentence. But we'll put you on probation first if you walk down your 1 year of paper. Then you're golden. Is that what happened to McCloskey?
I believe something similar. So yeah, he technically he was suspended, but now he is on probation. So I think as long as he is a good boy for a year, then his license will be back in regular status.
Anything else out of the Missouri Supreme Court? Of course, this is Robin Ransom, Justice Robin Ransom, who was just appointed in recent months. She's on the Missouri Supreme Court now. Was she busy yesterday?
Yeah, not yesterday. I mean, it takes them a while to write these opinions, but two big decisions out of the Supreme Court yesterday that people kind of had their eye on. One dealing with referendums, and that one was brought by the ACLU. It involves the Secretary of State, and there's a really shortened window to collect signatures on referendums, and I think the or referenda, the Secretary of State was being accused of kind of shortening that window even more. But by statute, he was required to follow all of these procedures, write a ballot title, for instance. And so the ACLU said, hey, that statute is just no good. Not that the Secretary shouldn't have done it, but that statute that allows him to do that is shortening our window. We have a constitutional right to initiative and referendum, and those statutes should be thrown out. And basically the court said, yeah, you don't need a ballot title on a referendum. Now, that's interesting to me because some of these bills are really long. So the ballot title usually is a summary and gives you a good idea of what the heck you're signing when people come up to you and say, will you sign this? So in my mind, I'm thinking, well, how in the world are people going to actually know what they're signing if there's no ballot title? But the court said, you don't need a ballot title. You can go ahead and collect your signatures. And that kind of lengthens the window with which you could do that.
So what that means to me, if I want to start something like that, is it making my job easier? If, let's say, I want to start this, but I don't have to have a title to it.
It just short. You can go directly to the people, and you don't have to wait for the secretary to write the ballot title. The other thing that was a lot of people have had their eye on is this Missouri medical marijuana decision. And if you recall, Missouri put in this big program now, 2 years ago? They scored all of these applications. I think 800 appeals were filed. And one of the big things is if you're in if you're at the Administrative Hearing Commission, which is where these appeals went, and you're trying to challenge it, and you're saying, well, hey, you gave a license to that guy, and you scored me down. You gave me a 4 for that answer, and that guy got a 10. One way to show that is to compare what you wrote on your answer and what I had on my answer. And what the state was saying was, oh, no, that's confidential. You can't see what that guy wrote. And everyone who lost is saying, well, wait a minute, how am I going to prove up my case? How am I going to show that you gave that guy, what if we had the same answer and he got a 10 and I got a 2? Then, something fishy's going on. But I can't figure that out unless I can see that guy's application. And so this went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, yeah, if you're appealing, then you have a right to see these other applications to the extent they're relevant to your case.
And I think a lot of people are thinking it's going to be a moot point because pretty soon, I'm going to guess, within a few years, we'll have legalized recreational marijuana and all the medical stuff. Be like,
there's currently an initiative filed to legalize marijuana.
Coming up, so we've got Republican infighting in Missouri. Had 30 hours of it yesterday, in effect. We've got Republican infighting in D.C. with some comments that Mitch McConnell made. Coming up 8:10 this morning, and I'm big on this. Progressives have their folks in their tent. Conservatives, you're not changing anybody's mind for the most part, but there's a lot of folks kind of milling around. Independents, and I'm big on this. Political scientist and author Tony Woodlief, he's going to be joining us 8:10 this morning. I hope you hear this. Polling data that shows sinking support for Biden, specifically among independents. I think that's a pretty big deal. And I don't know if anybody's been seeing what's happening at Stevens Lake Park, but we got to get in. I'm surprised nobody's throwing a fit about this. Remind me. We'll cover that at 7:50 here on 93.9 The Eagle. Get ready for What's Hot with Hannah.
I have a feel-good story about an Instacart driver. Do you even know what Instacart is?
Nope.
You gonna learn today.
All right, that's coming up.
Download the 93.9 The Eagle app and listen to Wake Up Columbia everywhere. It's easy to do. Geez, even Branden figured it out. 93.9 The Eagle.
Before we sneak into What's Hot with Hannah here, it's 7:25-ish. Want to remind you, it's getting to be that time of year. We get excited. I think not just here at the Zimmer Radio Group and at 93.9 The Eagle, and not just Brian and Stephanie and Hannah and us personally who have been involved with this project for a lot of years now. The whole, really, mid-Missouri gets excited about the Missouri Credit Union Miracle for Kids Radiothon coming up the end of February. It's going to be a Thursday and a Friday, 24th and 25th from 6A to 6P. In the coming days, we'll have all kinds of interesting ways that you can take part. And, we always talk about it's not about the dollar figures. We get to meet kind of so often when we donate to charity, and not that we need to, but you don't see a tangible kind of result. And we kind of get to see that. We'll have more info posted on our website for you, too, here at 939theeagle.com. 7:25-ish, which means it's
7:28.
Time for What's Hot with Hannah.
Now, Instacart, we're just going to start off right out of the gate. Do you know what Instacart is?
Is that where? No, I don't.
It's a grocery delivery service. Okay, so instead of going to the store to pick up your groceries, somebody will actually go shop it for you and bring it to your doorstep.
Like a maid or a butler. Yeah, I know what that is.
Okay, whatever. Whatever makes it make sense to you.
Thank you. So my butler has an app.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
So, somebody has gone viral on TikTok for an Instacart order that they filled that had an interesting twist. Her name is Jessica, and she was fulfilling an Instacart order for an elderly man, and his daughter was the one who placed the order. Okay? Stay with me.
Okay, I'm on.
So, she went to deliver the groceries to the old man, and when she got there, something just felt wrong. Like, she had a gut feeling that something was off. The old man didn't look very good. She actually broke the Instacart rule and went into the guy's house to actually help him put the groceries away because she just had that weird feeling that she needed to do that.
That's when you get murdered.
I guess, she said he wasn't feeling well and he was older, so maybe she thought, she had a decent chance.
That's what all murderers say, though.
Anyway, since the daughter was the one who placed the order, Jessica was able to contact the daughter to say, hey, I don't think your dad's doing great. Turns out there was a propane leak at this guy's house, and Jessica contacting the daughter probably saved the old man's life.
Oh,
How
yay,
cool
Jessica.
is that?
Yeah.
Worth a round of applause. Maybe a nomination for Winners and Losers of the Week Friday at 8:35.
Jessica's TikTok telling the story has over 16 million views on TikTok, and I've posted a link to it on the Wake Up Columbia Facebook page.
Very cool. Hey, coming up, 7:35, incumbent Blake Willoughby running for re-election, Columbia Public School Board. You got to hear what he has to say at 7:35.
Fox News, I'm Chris Foster. A Canadian trucker protest against coronavirus vaccine mandates has border traffic rerouted to a different bridge in Michigan 70 miles away.
Traffic backed up for miles on I-94 as semis made their way to the Blue Water Bridge after being directed away from the Ambassador Bridge in Detroit.
There's so many trucks that are waiting to deliver their freight.
In his 40 years as a truck driver, Terry Mullen says he's never seen anything like this.
Veronica Meadows with Fox 2 Detroit. 40 SpaceX Starlink satellites are knocked out of service by a geomagnetic storm.
The company says the satellites will burn up as they re-enter the atmosphere, so nothing should hit the ground. The Starlink satellites that are still in orbit are going to be helping the people of Tonga reconnect to the internet. The island nation was cut off 3 weeks ago when it was struck by a tsunami created by a volcanic eruption.
Fox's Jack Callahan. America's listening to Fox News.
.939 The Eagle News Time with Robinson's Cleaners. Robinson saves you time. We do have clear skies right now In Columbia, bright sunshine on its way, and we're going to warm up once again today. We're expecting a high of around 54 tonight. Clear skies, low near 28, sunny tomorrow, 47 for a high. Right now, 38 in Columbia. Good morning, everyone. Here are some of the stories we are working on for you at this hour. Missouri State Troopers are telling us that both lanes of eastbound I-70 near Kingdom City have now reopened after that earlier crash involving a tractor-trailer. Traffic had been backed up for about a mile and a half at one point. Again, both lanes are now open, according to the Missouri State Highway Patrol. Meantime, authorities in the southern Boone County town of Ashland using a drone and a helicopter searching for a suspect involved in that attempted abduction Tuesday afternoon. They've been unable to find the suspect. Ashland police say the incident happened about 1:45 at Oak and Tandy, that the juvenile was not physically harmed. Once officers obtained a suspect description, they immediately canvassed the area, also launching the drone, conducting an air search. Anyone with information is urged to call Crime Stoppers 573-875-TIPS. Ashland police have not released right now any details about the suspect. We don't know if it's a man or a woman. Any other details at this time? Anyone with information urged to call Crime Stoppers 573-875-TIPS. The Missouri Supreme Court says the people's right to weigh in on laws passed by the legislature has been illegally limited. The Missouri Supreme Court ruling Tuesday that laws regulating the referendum process are unconstitutional. Case stems from a Missouri law banning most abortions after 8 weeks of pregnancy. Legislation designating part of Highway 19 in mid-Missouri's Montgomery County as the Russell Lee Burton Memorial Highway will be heard today by the House Transportation Committee in Jefferson City. 69-year-old Burton, a former Montgomery County School Board member, 35 years as Montgomery City's utility superintendent. He was killed in a horrific motorcycle crash back on October, Highway 19, not far from I-70 near a town called New Florence. Despite a packed council chamber on Monday, Columbia Councilman Matt Pitzer says there's not unanimous support across the city for using the Wabash Station as an emergency overnight warming shelter.
I mean, that was an organized campaign by a group of activists to, fill the council chambers and, provide all this testimony and, give the appearance that there's this, sort of broad public support for this idea.
That is, again, Councilman Pitzer on Wake Up Columbia. Columbia staff officials say Wabash is not an ideal location for an emergency overnight warming center in any year, especially is unsuitable during a pandemic. Our news is brought to you this hour by Willett Dental Associates. They practice conscious sedation dentistry to relax your fears. Make an appointment now, 573-445-5300, WillettDentalAssociates.com. 93.9 The Eagle News Time, 7:34. In sports, the Missouri Tiger men's basketball team did have some foul issues last night. They fall to Vanderbilt on the road, 70-62. Javon Pickett with a team-high 15 points. Mizzou did fight back in the game. About 5 minutes to go, they hit a three-pointer, and they briefly led, but the Commodores take a 9-0 run, and they pull away. You might remember this name, Scottie Pippen. Remember him? Chicago Bulls, Scottie Pippen Jr., 19 points last night for Vanderbilt. Very impressive. Mizzou on the year now 9-14. They'll take on Ole Miss. That game will be Saturday right here in Columbia. 93.9 The Eagle News Time, 7:35. And our traffic check is with MidmoHires.com. Local companies looking for local people. MidmoHires.com. Again, both lanes of eastbound I-70 near Kingdom City are now reopened, according to the Missouri State Highway Patrol. You may have a little bit of a backup. When I say backup, obviously you've had a lot of cars earlier in that backup. But other than that, things should start moving flowing very quickly, getting through that area. The good news is it's open, and the tractor-trailer has been cleared from that scene. More team coverage in less than 30 minutes. Breaking news immediately. I'm Brian Hauswirth, 93.9 The Eagle.
So you're not consistent. And I noticed, again, as a nurse, how serious you are about not passing on infections. I'm glad you welcomed these kids tonight, and I'm glad you gave them personal touch and encouragement for what they have done. And yet you passed on every germ, handshaking one to another, another one following you right behind. Not only
Grandma Bonnie, I wish I could meet that woman and shake her hand. Common sense in front of the Columbia Public School Board. A couple of months ago, I want to bring in Blake Willoughby. He is an incumbent serving on the school board. He is running for re-election. Mr. Willoughby, welcome into the show. How do you react to something like that? Because I saw that meeting. You guys in mass, we got to be careful, and those kids come up, and you guys are right there. How do you reconcile yourself with that?
No, good morning. Thank y'all so much for having me on. I appreciate y'all asking, and it's great to be a part of this with y'all. You know, I think we're all allowed to have where our opinions are at and where our thoughts are when it comes to shaking hands, especially during this period of time. We hadn't been for quite some time, and I think that was just a decision that we moved forward doing since we were having kids come back in and we were giving those awards out. And so that's kind of what I have to comment on that one.
Yeah, but I think it speaks to a bigger issue. There's a lot of hypocrisy here, and in my opinion, not just with the Columbia Public School Board, but we're seeing Stacey Abrams, Gavin Newsom, a lot of those progressives, wear the mask. They don't believe in wearing the mask because they're continuously caught in public without wearing masks. And so I'm just trying to, it's not an attack here. There's a lot of parents listening to you right now, a lot of taxpayers that are listening to you and grandparents, and I think they want some straight answers, Mr. Willoughby. It's hypocritical to talk about, well, we want you to do this, we want you to be safe, and then you do, and that's just one instance, by the way. It's hypocritical. You don't, do you see that at all?
In hypocritical in the sense of shaking hands with folks?
No, hypocritical in the sense you got to do this to stay safe. You got to do this. And then as this person in the medical profession just said, then you're shaking hands with all of these people. I mean, if you're really believing in all the things, we got to do this, we got to do that. And I believe in washing your hands, incidentally. I want to be clear on my opinion on that. You and I agree on that, Mr. Willoughby. But it just seems, as a parent, okay, as a parent, and all the people at that meeting, and you heard that woman got a standing not a standing ovation, but she got some applause. And I think that's what people are wanting answers for. And I want to give you the opportunity because, and we'll get into your opinions and your past votes on mask mandates, but we do want to move on to other things because it's not 30,000 feet view, not the biggest thing right now. So I want to give you a chance to address that before we move forward.
No, yeah, like I said, I think that we've heard from a lot of healthcare professionals at meetings, in emails on this issue. And what's difficult for making these decisions is that it all ranges. And we have folks that are sharing information from various different research articles that have been published and done. And so there's not even a full consensus from those within the medical profession when it comes to responding to COVID. And so that's a part of why I say that I think we're all allowed to have our opinions when it comes to the variations of mitigation that we do. And I do think in that moment, as we were shaking hands as a board with those students, I think it was us trying to, I think the ethos was trying to move into a direction of some more normalcy, as we all are trying to do as a society. But I understand the critique.
Yeah, Blake,
it's a very fair critique.
I should have had you come in because you and I could talk about this and discuss. And that's what I'm serious when I say we could discuss this. Because you say there's opinions on mitigation strategies. I'm hearing, well, there's opinions on the science. So we're picking to do this thing, but we're not picking to do that. And I got to tell you, it doesn't make sense. Blake Willoughby, Columbia Public School Board member running for re-election. Other folks in the race: Suzette Waters, Adam Burks, and Andrea Lisenby. And again, and we'll move on to other things, but this is what people want to know about, Mr. Willoughby.
Oh, yes, sir.
Your past votes on instituting mask mandates. How did you vote in the past on mask mandates?
No, yeah. Sorry, I didn't know if we were pausing or with that. My apologies. But yes, so I would say that when it comes to those votes back in December, I voted for us to move in January with no mask. And then most recently when we moved after Dr. Yearwood did the emergency mandate, I offered an amendment to give him that ability to extend it if we were seeing a need. The reasons for that, I can pause there if you like me, Branden.
No, keep going.
Okay. I would say in December, when we made that vote, part of my decision-making there was looking at the fact that our case numbers were very, very low. We were not seeing a lot of high spread within our student population itself, and we weren't seeing a lot of high spread within our staff. So we weren't seeing the viability and the stability of in-person education being threatened at that time. As we moved into the school year in January, we had folks pushing for the mask mandate to come back, and I was constantly looking at the data. When we came back on January 4th, our community spread was rising, but our student population positive cases hadn't gone to a high space. Our staff positive cases weren't at a high space. So the stability and the viability of in-person education wasn't being threatened at that time. But as we kept on going into January with the school year, that changed. We saw our trends of positive cases within our student population and within our staff population to be increasing as that community spread was increasing.
How did you?
So now,
yeah. I'm sorry, and now I am interrupted because there's other things we want to talk about. Blake Willoughby, incumbent, Columbia Public School Board, running for re-election. How did you feel? Because the community elected you and other board members. The board, an elected board, voted to do away with the mask mandate. And I understand the superintendent has the power. He unilaterally undid what an elected board did. Did that cause you any internal issues? Like, man, an elected board voted on this, but now this guy's just undoing it. The premise of being able to do that, does that bother you?
To me, I saw his action to be a very conservative and liberal. I hate saying that word, but what I mean by conservative is meaning in the sense of a very measured move. It was a very short emergency measure of making sure we were having in person, and it allowed the board not to have to do a special session.
Okay,
but
so you didn't
Thursday and make a move to then further either say no, we're not going to do this anymore, or to continue with his emergency.
So to answer the question, you had no internal consternation with the fact that he undid what an elected board did?
No, because it was to respond to an emergency situation, just like if he were to say, we need to close this school down. The board might not have voted to close the school down, but he was saying in this emergency instance, we need to do this for right now quickly.
Blake Willoughby, Brian Hauswirth here, and in the news department. We appreciate you joining us live. I want to move over, and there's a lot of things going on, obviously, in the district, but Columbia right now, CPS, is Missouri's 5th largest district. It continues to grow. The growth is continuing even this year, and we are continuing to see more and more schools built. We've got a bond issue on the ballot. It's an $80 million bond issue that is on the April ballot, the same ballot that you'll be on. How do you feel about that, and what are the biggest things in that bond issue from your perspective that are coming before the voters?
No, yes. So it's a no tax increase bond. It's a bond issue. The reason why we're asking for $80 million is because we're going to issue it in 2 installments. So the first installment will be $40 million in this year if it's passed in 2022. And then the other $40 million would be in 2024. So we wouldn't be coming back to the community for another bond issue at minimum until 2026. And what's the biggest things that are coming out of this is, as you were talking about with our growth, we're looking at building 2 new elementary schools with this money. We're looking at purchasing land for potentially building another high school. And I think one of the most exciting things that comes out of it is the Career Center. I went and visited a Career Center up near Kansas City, and it's wonderful to see what a reimagining of a 21st century Career Center allows for when it comes to community being able to see the wonderful work our students are doing, for our students to have even more state-of-the-art facilities and classrooms that really apply to what we are already providing in Columbia Public Schools through our Career Center. It's just our building is a lot older and not gotten up to speed in that kind of space. So I think, to me, responding to our growth with the bond is one of those important pieces, but one of the really, really awesome pieces of this bond, and I do hope people support it, is that bringing that Career Center parts of it back up to that 21st century so that we can best be providing our students and preparing them for career and technical education.
So, a couple months ago, you had a professional parliamentarian come to the school board to kind of talk about how to run your meetings after I think there was some issues with the way the meetings had proceeded. Have you made changes based on his recommendations to the way the meetings are going to proceed going forward?
So we haven't made a full, any policy changes at this moment for meetings. I will say that one of those things that the parliamentarian shared was that when you're making comments as board members, try to only address the president in giving those comments. And so I know in our January meeting, I tried my best to do that. In our work session that we had, it was a little bit harder because I had more direct questions to ask of one of our board members as she was proposing amendments. And so I think that's also just a practice thing. I'm so used to directly asking the question to board members, and so I'm trying to get into that space. But I do know that there is some conversations of wanting to have a deeper conversation as a board of, do we want to see some parliamentarian changes for our structure of meetings?
Blake Willoughby sits on the Columbia Public School Board running for re-election. We've had Andrea Lisenby, Suzette Waters, and we've had Adam Burks on the show, and now we were chatting with Blake Willoughby. A couple of things I want to ask you, and just be honest, okay? Because I know we have not met in person. I wanted to meet you at that forum a couple weeks ago.
I'm sorry about that.
No, that's okay, and I'm glad I clarified. Just so you know, I never said anything on the air. But let me ask you this: when some of the folks that you are in your social circle and you told them you were going on Wake Up Columbia on 93.9 The Eagle, just be honest, Blake, because we're all about honesty on the show. Did you get some folks say, "Oh, you better be careful," or "You don't want to go on that show"? Did that happen?
All I got told is that just be prepared. They like to fire questions and move fast because I'm long-winded, so I'm sorry about that.
All right, let me ask you this. Do you feel like it's rapid-fire questions, or do you feel like we've been pretty fair and reasonable so far?
I feel like y'all have been really fair and reasonable, so I appreciate that a lot.
All right. And there's other stuff I do want to ask you about. And we could sit here and talk forever about the mask things, but because that's what parents care about. I know we agreed to like 5 to 10 minutes, but I do want to ask you some other things as you are a sitting board member on the Columbia Public School District. Do you have to bolt? Can you hang out? Like if we put you on hold for like just a few minutes, can you come back and chat some more?
Yes, I would be more than willing to.
All right, because I want to ask about some things that have happened on the school board. And the Columbia, I'll say this now before I put you on hold, the Columbia Public, this is not under the purview of the board, but, since you know people, the website for the Columbia Public School District, we got to talk about that, okay? Because it's, okay?
We'll do.
All right, I'm going to put you on hold. We will continue our conversation with Columbia Public School Board member Blake Willoughby, running for re-election. So as a parent, as a voter, taxpayer, you've heard him. Now, let's see if we get some answers to things that are happening on the board. We'll get into that coming up 7:53 on 93.9 The Eagle.
Wake Up Columbia with Branden Rathert. It's what happens when you let emotionally unbalanced people play in a room full of microphones. 93.9 The Eagle.
Welcome in. Got a few more minutes. Blake Willoughby. He's a member of the Columbia Public School Board running for re-election. We've had on the other candidates, Andrea Lisenby, Adam Burks, Suzette Waters. They've been on the show. By the way, Della Streety, Will Hoyt, she is also on the board. She's not running for re-election. Blake is. And I want to get to some other things here, Mr. Willoughby. And again, thank you for your time. I think we're all cool that everybody is cool, but there's things like the Columbia Public School website. And I want to get to that, but I also want to tack on, Stephanie was asking about this parliamentarian that was brought in at a cost to the school district. And I'm wondering, was that specifically in response? There was an incident, I can't remember if this was December or November, but there was a parent, and she's addressing the board, and the president of the school board, Helen Wade, and I'll play the audio because I want you to hear it. I want to make sure everybody is clear on what happened and what didn't happen here. But Helen Wade, the president of the school board, telling a parent, and I get the parents passionate, but I want you to hear what Helen Wade said.
I haven't got an answer still. My one single question was, if masks are made optional, will you lose your ESSER funding?
Okay. You're doing the same thing that you did before.
I'm just stating what I've asked you guys.
You heard me say twice this evening comments that are derogatory of a person, and that's what you're doing.
Do you feel that what that parent was saying, because I didn't sense that, and there's a whole bunch of audio before that, and I'm telling you, Blake, I don't hear anything in there that was derogatory, and I've only got like a minute and a half here, so two questions. Number one, was the parliamentarian brought in because of what Helen Wade, the president of the school board, did at that meeting? She cut the people off. People got out of the meeting. There were parents that, like, I can't even get back in. We don't know what's going on. It was piss poor management, and I don't think you can get around that. Is that why the parliamentarian was brought in?
No, we were already discussing about bringing a parliamentarian even before that meeting.
Okay. And then, and we got a question here from a parent. So there's test scores that continue to go, and I know that's been a big thing. Test scores are going down. You want to address that here in 20 seconds if you can. I know that may not be fair, but we want to get to a lot here.
I think in a brief 20 seconds, what I will say is I think our scores are a very big concern. How the board addresses that is by having that oversight process of our employees through our one employee, the superintendent. And the reason why I voted to hire Dr. Yearwood out of our 3 finalists that we brought in was his ability and his past experience of turning around school buildings for students, and specifically historically marginalized students who have been underperforming historically with academics. And so I'm very hopeful that as he gets done with his first year and he's able to now assess the district, he can move forward in the coming years to implement new ways of addressing this.
Okay, and then like 30 seconds here. I appreciate you coming on the show, and I appreciate you responding to me, because that has not been, as a matter of fact, I had a very spirited discussion with somebody within the school district, not on the board, and showed them, no, yeah, this is not an issue, and had proof. Here you go. But I hear from parents, poor communication, and it's not that, well, it's poor communication because you're not getting the answers you want. I don't believe that at all, and maybe to an extent it is, but the website, the Columbia Public School District website, and that's probably not under your purview. 10 seconds. Is there anything you can do, or at least pass the word along?
I think what the board does is we can share concerns with our staff, let them know, and so anytime you have it, just let us know.
Blake Willoughby, running for re-election incumbent on the Columbia Public School Board. I appreciate you responding to us here on the show, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you, y'all, as well.
U.S. gets support from another NATO ally. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. Amid all the concern a Russian troop buildup near Ukraine will lead to an invasion, Fox's Simon Owen has details live.
Dave, Slovakia is close to signing a defense treaty with the U.S. after lawmakers in the country, which borders Ukraine, narrowly approved the plan. The debate in Parliament was stormy, with some lawmakers booing and blowing whistles. Two of them got into a scuffle. Slovakia is a NATO ally, and its government says the treaty will make the country safer, allowing the US to use 2 Air Force bases. Opponents argue it compromises Slovakia's sovereignty and may provoke Russia. Dave?
Simon, the Senate's considering sanctions on Russia if it invades, something President Biden has vowed to put in place, as Congress also deals with another potential government shutdown.
The House has passed a measure to keep the federal government funded for another month. Most Democrats supported it. Only 1 in 4 Republicans backed it. The spending plan moves on to the Senate, which is expected to take it on before current funding runs out February 18th.
Fox's Jill Nato. 2 Democratic senators up for re-election, Mark Kelly and Maggie Hassan, are proposing suspending the federal gas tax. That would save us 18 cents a gallon, though it's unclear how many other lawmakers would agree to it. Gas has surged 16 cents since a month ago to $3.47 a gallon, according to AAA. In Virginia,
God did not intend for us to walk around with the diaper on our face.
The thought of spending 1 more hour in a mask made me sick. Sick because I can't breathe.
Students and parents spoke out against masks again last night at the Loudoun County School Board as it defies Republican Governor Glenn Youngkin's order letting kids opting out wearing them. Virginia's legislature is expected to approve a bill with some Democrats supporting it that would make the school mask opt-out a law, while the governors of Illinois and New York are expected to announce a lifting of mask mandates, joining other Democrat-led states. America's listening to Fox News.
Why does Walgreens offer copays as low as $0 and 90-day refills? Because we care about Medicare, so you don't have to. I mean, do you really care to hear me go on about same-day prescription delivery making your life easier? Or how there's a pharmacy expert available 24/7 and one-click refills? Well, I just did anyways. Fill your Medicare prescriptions with Walgreens and save.
$0 copays apply to Tier 1 generic drugs and select plans with Walgreens as a preferred pharmacy. Restrictions apply. See walgreens.com/Medicare for complete details. Watching TaxSlayer calculate your refund feels like climbing to the apex of a roller coaster.
Here we go!
And flying down the tracks. At maximum refund speed. File for free with TaxSlayer Simply Free and get your guaranteed maximum refund. TaxSlayer. File fearlessly.
93.9 The Eagle News Time with Robinson's Cleaners. Robinson saves you time. It is 8:03. Bright sunshine right now in Columbia. We're expecting a high today of around 54. Clear tonight. Low near 28 tomorrow. Sunny and a high of 47 degrees. 38 right now in Columbia. 36 degrees in Jefferson City. Good morning. Here are some of the stories we are working on for you. At this hour, we'll begin with an update on a murder that happened here in Columbia back in 2017. A jury trial is now set for April for a man accused of taking part in that deadly robbery. According to our news partner, ABC 17, a 4-day trial is now set for April 19th for Jeffrey McWilliams. McWilliams charged with second-degree murder, first-degree robbery, and armed criminal action. Columbia police say that McWilliams was at least present when someone shot and killed the victim, Augustus Roberts. That happened back in 2017. Investigators have said that Mr. Roberts allegedly sold large amounts of high-grade marijuana and that people involved may have tried to rob him. Again, the trial date set for April the 19th. Meantime, Ashland police need your help this morning in solving an attempted kidnapping.
Ashland police say someone called in to report an attempted abduction of a child around 2 o'clock yesterday near the intersection of Oak and Tandy Streets. The child wasn't hurt. Officers searched the area and even used a drone, but were unable to find anyone. They haven't released any details about what the person looked like. John Marsh, 93.9, The Eagle.
Anyone with information is urged to call Crime Stoppers 573-875-TIPS. Meantime, a 30-hour filibuster in the Missouri Senate finally ending early this morning. It did highlight some growing tension between the two parties and also between the Senate Conservative Caucus and other Republicans. The Missouri Times did report the Senate briefly voted 22-5 to adopt the 6-2 GOP map proposed by Majority Leader Caleb Rowden of Columbia. Apparently that will have to be voted on again at some point. It's unclear when. Senate gavels back in at noon today. The 7-1 GOP map was voted down 24-8. This Missouri House Special Committee on Government Oversight's Republican chair and its top Democrat support a bill from Ashland Sarah Walsh. It would repeal the state's gas tax increase. Ferguson Democratic Representative Rachel Prouty announcing her support during a Tuesday hearing in Jefferson City.
This is a unique opportunity for us to get money back into the pockets of Missourians who absolutely need a break right now. Absolutely need a break.
And Representative Walsh testifies Missouri's 2021 gas tax increase should have gone to a statewide vote. It was Missouri's first gas tax increase since 1996. And a Missouri House committee will hear testimony this afternoon on a bill to remember the life and service of the longtime Montgomery City utility superintendent. He died in a horrific motorcycle crash in October. 59-year-old Russell Lee Burton, known across the region, 35 years Montgomery County's utility superintendent. He also served on the Montgomery County School Board, volunteer firefighter, ran Toys for Tots, worked the chains at high school football games. Chairman Jeff Porter, the chairman of the Transportation Committee, who's from Montgomery City, tells 93.9 The Eagle that he will testify today. His bill would designate part of Highway 19 near New Florence, the Russell Lee Burton Memorial Highway. Private donations would fund the cost of those signs. Our news is brought to you this hour live by the Callaway Bank. The Callaway Bank is with you for the moments that matter. 93.9 The Eagle News Time, 8:06. In sports, the Missouri Tiger men's basketball team with foul issues last night. They fall to Vandy on the road 70-62. Javon Pickett, 15 points in the game. Mizzou briefly got back into it. They fought back, held the lead with about 5 minutes to go after a big three. However, Doors go on a 9-0 run. They pull away. Scottie Pippen Jr., 19 points for the Commodores. Mizzou on the year right now, 9-14. Our sports also brought to you by the Callaway Bank. 93.9 The Eagle News Time, 8:07. All right, Kevin, thanks so much. 38 degrees in Columbia. And our traffic check is with MidmoHires.com. Local companies looking for local people. MidmoHires.com, 807 93.9 The Eagle and 93.9theeagle.com. Roads right now pretty quiet. We had that situation on eastbound I-70 near Kingdom City. It is cleared. Other than that, things have been quiet. More team coverage in less than 30 minutes. Breaking news immediately. I'm Brian Hauswirth, 93.9 The Eagle.
Leaning into the argument about elections and election fairness in either direction turns me off.
What could Biden do right now to make you feel less like a reluctant Biden supporter?
I mean, we got a lot of problems. We got a high inflation. We have supply chain issues.
It's almost $400 just to go to the grocery store for 3 people. I mean, that's insane.
I think he's listening to too many liberals.
Now, what's important to note there, that is a panel of independent voters recently impaneled by MSNBC. They spoke with a panel of independent voters who did vote for Biden because they were independent and they didn't know who they were going to vote for. I think they know now they made a serious, grave mistake, and millions of Americans are paying for their vote. I thought it was interesting MSNBC did that. The same day MSNBC did that report, CBS took it a step further on one of their Sunday news programs. They impaneled Democrat voters that voted for Biden that regretted their decision. And you know me, guys. I'm big on this messaging, and I'm big on
on convincing people that you're open-minded.
I'm big on, hey, listen, the progressives, they've got their tent, and they ain't coming out. Conservatives have their tent. They're not coming out. So where are we growing the base? Well, it's those people milling around the tents. And it's my contention that it's the independents, but what do I know?
Your contention?
My contention? What did I say?
Well, you were talking about tents. So your contention. It's not funny if I have to explain it.
The
Come
way
on.
You get some points there. Give Hannah around this.
And the way that you're explaining it, I see you like with the piece of candy at the door of the tent, like, come on in. Like bribing people.
Leaving a trail of Cheerios.
It's okay. Just follow me. Nothing to worry about here. Come over to the conservative. And meanwhile, Tony Woodlief, who is a very much a very respected political scientist and author, is listening to this going, what are you guys doing, man? Tony, welcome into the show. How are you?
Hey, Branden, thanks for having me. This is fun. I just as soon listen.
Well, and I don't blame you. According to the ratings, everybody else is too. So forgive me for that. Okay, so I'm trying to think. I don't want to start with the polling. I want to start with my reasoning why this matters. It matters. MSNBC, they impaneled these independent voters that voted for Biden, and they're living with themselves now. They really regret it. And my argument, again, it's the two tents. Okay, you have yours, they have theirs, but there's a lot of people hanging outside those tents. The independents. Let's talk for a minute. Number one, do you agree with my reasoning on that?
Yes, I do. I mean, we've seen the data. A majority of Americans now describe themselves as independents, and they have a very low opinion of the political parties and Congress and the presidency. So there's a widespread rejection of politics as usual.
All right. And then the independents, as we heard from there, they have the same, because people, those are just conservative talking points, supply chain issues, the economy. No, it's not conservative talking points. You're hearing it from the voters there. So how important is that moving forward for, let's say, for conservatives that listen, because I think there's a bigger thing with messaging too to independents, how we do that, but how important are independent voters, in the midterms this year and then in 2024?
That's a great question, and I think for conservatives, if you want to think of the Republican Party, at least for now, as the home of conservatives, they have a choice that they're going to have to make. They can side with the kind of Matt Gaetzes and Marjorie Taylor Greenes of the world, Paul Gosars, the people who are temperamentally, I would say, somewhat extreme and combative, or they can take a lesson from Glenn Youngkin, the new governor of Virginia. And he's someone who's very conservative, but he did not strike a combative, angry tone. He talked about things that the voters cared about, gas prices, groceries, what their kids are being indoctrinated with in schools. And that it was very compelling. A lot of counties that had gone for Biden flipped over and went for a Youngkin. So I think the Republicans are going to have to figure out which of those two egos, alter egos, they're going to side with.
Well, and I mean, we're seeing so much division, and I see some of it, traces back for a long while between kind of like economic conservatives and more moral conservatives. And there's always, I think, been people who fall into one of those camps. And you kind of couched it in different terms, more combative versus, non-combative. And that's more of a personality thing. I think other people are saying you kind of have like your Trump camp and you're, not Trump camp. So maybe like these newer Trump conservatives and the establishment conservatives. I mean, how is all of that playing? And we're having the issue in Missouri as well. We have people who are saying we're super conservatives, you're rhinos, that issue. So how does that play among independents? Does it just turn people off? What can Republicans do to kind of come together and, as Branden likes to say, bring more people into the tent?
You're asked. That's a great question. What we see in presidential elections, we do this. The University of Michigan does this every election. They ask voters where they are politically, and that's how we know most people are center-right, not extreme conservative, definitely not liberal. But they also ask them what they think of the candidates, the presidential candidates. And what we find again and again is that the candidate that the voters perceive to be the most moderate is the one they vote for. But they don't like extreme ideology on the left or the right. And I think, Trump's success in part was you had all this built-up frustration because the issues that people cared about were being neglected because the traditional candidates, they have to pay attention to what their base, their donors and the activists, what they care about, and not what regular Americans care about. So you have Donald Trump, who was calling all that out, and I think that was really refreshing for people. But what killed him in the last election, in 2016, we saw that a majority of people surveyed believed he was more moderate than Hillary Clinton. But then in 2020, 2/3 of Americans viewed him as the more extreme person, and Joe Biden had positioned himself as, good old Uncle Joe. And so I think now the poll collapses are because people are saying, well, Joe Biden is just as extreme as we thought Donald Trump is, just the other direction.
Political scientist and author Tony Woodlief joining us here on Wake Up Columbia. Stephanie Bellhanna, the producer, Brian Hauswirth. My name is Branden Rathert. Welcome into the show. I do, in the poll numbers, even with independents, we kind of know what they are. I want to get back to, if you're comfortable talking about this, the messaging aspect of it, because you talk about somebody like a Marjorie Taylor Greene. By the way, if you chat with any, if you go on any of the cable news outlets today, work in a plug for Missouri, would you, and highlight that we just had a 30-hour Senate filibuster on redistricting, and it kind of plays into a little bit, I think, of what we're talking about. There is a faction of the majority, actually, the majority of Republicans in the Missouri Senate, if you're basing it on this map vote, they're conservative, maybe more. I don't even think middle of the road is right, but you have some of the folks that are further on the right that wanted a map that had more Republican districts. So make sure you mention that on that. Hey, I was talking with Branden and Stephanie from 93.9 England. You know what happened in the capital of Missouri? But the people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, because I think this goes to messaging, and people say, oh, Marjorie Taylor Greene is great, and I hate to tarnish Matt Gaetz any more than potentially what he has done, because when I lived in Florida, I did a lot of work with him when he was a state representative. What do you think about when it comes to messaging? Let's say you're a conservative. What's the proper way to message to conservatives? Because here's the other issue that I have. There's Josiah Mendez. He's the president of the Mizzou College Republicans. We try to get him on from time to time. Even like conservative literature, books. I read some of these books and I'm like, man, Mark Levine, you got to make it a little bit simpler. I can understand it. But a lot of other people can't. So not just the but messaging as a whole, how important is that for conservatives right now, and what should be some of the key things? And maybe you said it when you invoke the name of Glenn Youngkin and education.
Mm-hmm. Right. No, I think a challenge is that definitely we know that what gets you more national news media is anger, and having an enemy that you can disparage. But I don't think that inspires much hope in regular voters. And so then the challenge of a person who wants to go into public service spaces is, if he wants to get the dollars and the media attention, he has to go very negative. But if he wants to win the hearts of Americans, he's got to have some